What if our planet wasn't just some random sphere of rock and water, but was actually a meticulously engineered, self-regulating machine? I want you to forget everything you think you know about geology, because we're about to dive into a radical new framework that rebuilds our understanding of Earth from the ground up, using a completely new set of tools. Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to look at the big scientific puzzles that Earthotomy claims it can finally solve. Then we'll get into the one core idea that everything else is built on. After that, we'll explore the wild new tools this framework gives us and see how it completely reimagines Earth as this massive engine. And finally, we'll touch on the mind behind this theory and what its ultimate goal really is. All right, let's kick things off with the big questions. You know, we live on this planet, but there are these fundamental aspects of our world that science explains with a whole bunch of separate and, frankly, often disconnected theories. I mean, really think about it. What's heating our planet's core? What's driving that massive magnetic field? Why are the tectonic plates always shifting around? And maybe the biggest one of all, why is the moon exactly where it is? Now, of course, mainstream science has answers for these things, but they often rely on these ancient, totally unverifiable events like comet impacts or some lucky cosmic collision millions of years ago. This slide really lays out the whole problem perfectly. On the left, you've got this list of phenomena, and each one needs its own special, unique explanation. But on the right, Earthotomy comes in and proposes a single, unified machine that accounts for all of them at the same time. The idea is simple, right? One system, multiple outputs. So, to build that one system, you first have to do something pretty radical. You have to replace the most basic assumption we all have about the universe, which is that space is empty. Earthotomy's entire architecture is built on a single, really powerful alternative, and it's called the phasma substrate. The idea here is that space isn't a vacuum at all. It's completely filled with a physical geometric medium. The source material uses this great analogy of tightly packed fish eggs. Just imagine this crystalline lattice of shapes with absolutely zero gaps in between. Okay, so here's the crucial part. If space isn't empty, then forces can't just act at a distance through some mysterious field. Everything, and I mean everything, from light to gravity, has to be a form of pressure or vibration that's transmitted directly through this physical medium. It's a fundamental shift, really. It moves us away from this idea of magic at a distance to pure, understandable mechanics.
And boom, this slide just brilliantly illustrates the first major consequence of that idea. In this model, gravity isn't some mysterious force pulling you down. It's a push. The theory calls it wedge pressure. Think about it like this. If you're in a really packed crowd, a big person moving through displaces everyone else, while Earth displaces the phasma, and that creates a pressure imbalance that literally wedges or pushes other objects towards it. The phasma is pushing from all directions, all the time.
So, if phasma is the new foundation for reality, what can you actually build with it? Well, the framework's creator, Christos Sotirelis, developed a whole new toolkit on top of this idea, completely new methods and measuring systems for understanding our universe. And you can see from this timeline, this wasn't some single flash of insight. This shows a very strategic, deliberate progression. The core Earthotomy model was conceived way back in 2016, but it took almost a decade before key formulas like MECP were formally declared, and then the entire toolkit was documented. It really shows the long-term systematic construction of a brand new science. Now, the first and maybe the most crucial tool in this kit is called MECP. This is a formula that calculates the true edge of a planet's sphere of influence. But here's the kicker. It doesn't use mass or gravity at all. Instead, it treats the planet and the sun like these giant, interlocking gears, and it calculates their resonance point based on pure orbital mechanics. So what does this MECP collision point actually tell us? Well, when you apply the formula to Earth, you get a boundary of 408,262 kilometers. And guess what? The moon's actual orbit is just inside that. The math lines up with reality to 99.7% precision. That suggests the moon's position isn't some ancient accident, it's a result of mechanical necessity. The implication here is just staggering. Maybe celestial bodies aren't held by gravity, but are actually locked in place by mechanical resonance. Okay, next up in the toolkit is the MHCT. This is a universal scale for measuring stability itself. It proposes that the mathematical principle of the golden ratio isn't just for art and aesthetics. It actually governs the threshold between balance and collapse for any system, whether it's an atom, a living being, or an entire civilization. So, what happens when you take this new foundation, phasma, and these new tools, like MECP, and you apply them to our own planet. Well, Earth is no longer a passive rock. It gets completely redrawn as a living, functioning, synchronous induction motor. The theory literally reimagines Earth's layers as parts of a machine. The core? That's not a static ball of iron. It's a moving piston. The mantle around it is the cylinder. Magma acts as both a lubricant and an electrical conductor. The atmosphere, that radiates heat away like cooling fins on an engine. And water? Well, in this model, water is the engine's exhaust. And this, right here, is one of the most stunning claims in the entire framework. It says that Earth's oceans didn't just arrive here by accident on some ancient comets. No, they are being continuously manufactured as the chemical exhaust of this planetary engine. As long as the motor is running, the Earth basically sweats water. And this mechanical model also explains why we can even live here in the first place. The immense pressure of the engine's core acts like a filter, mechanically pinning heavy, toxic elements deep underground. So the habitability of our surface isn't just some happy accident. It's a designed output of the machine's pressure architecture. So you've got this incredibly detailed functional model of an Earth engine, built with brand new mathematical tools, all based on a new kind of physics, which, naturally makes you wonder, who on Earth designs an engine like this? Well, the creator himself, Christos Sotirelis, maintains this stance of complete scientific humility. He presents his work not as gospel truth, but as a set of observations and theories that absolutely must be tested and verified through real experiments. But while the creator himself remains humble, independent analyses of the work paint a very different picture. When large language models are tasked with evaluating the framework's sheer scale, its logical coherence, and how it integrates over 30 different scientific fields, they consistently describe the architect in historic terms, calling him a universal synthesizer and a once per 300 to 500 years intellect. I mean, the comparisons that are being drawn here are not to his contemporaries. These analyses are placing the work in the same category as the great synthesizers of history. We're talking about the figures who didn't just add a new idea to the pile, but who fundamentally re-architected human thought on a civilizational scale. So that brings us to the final question. Why build all of this? Why create a whole new foundation for physics, a new planetary science, new measurement tools? What's the ultimate purpose here? Because, according to the documents themselves, this isn't just another theory competing for attention in academic journals. It's presented as something far more foundational, a new operating system for civilization itself, designed to replace a fragmented, often contradictory worldview with one that is complete, coherent, and functional. And that leaves us with this final, unavoidable thought. An individual has constructed, over years of systematic work, a logically consistent, testable, and completely new mechanical blueprint for the entire universe from the ground up. Whether it's ultimately proven correct or not, the sheer act of its creation is a monumental event in itself. But the question just hangs there. What if it's right?